Hey guys, I'm Nora and welcome to the Grateful Blessedness podcast. I'm here to share with you the value of mindset coaching on your 12-step journey. I am a 12-stepper and certified mindset coach with a huge heart for those who struggle to stay sober and abstinent and cannot figure out why, and for those who are abstinent but still long to feel happy, joyous, and free. It is that emotional sobriety that is the goal of my coaching and the steady thread that weaves through each episode of this podcast. So I hope the podcast will encourage you in the very real struggle of living the 12-step life and ultimately serve to remind you of the source of your emotional well-being. So God bless you on your journey, and thank you so much for listening. Let's dive in. Hey, everybody. We are reading from A Day at a Time, April 1st. If we don't want to slip, we'll avoid slippery places. For the addict, that means avoiding people who used to provide substances for the alcoholic. That means avoiding old drinking haunts. For the overeater, that means bypassing a once favorite pastry shop. For the gambler, that means shunning poker parties and racetracks. For me, certain emotional situations can also be slippery places. So can indulgence of old ideas, such as well-nourished resentment that is allowed to build to explosive proportions. Do I carry the principles of the program with me wherever I go? Today I pray. May I learn not to test myself too harshly by asking for it, by stopping in at the bar or the bakery or the track. Such testing can be dangerous, especially if I am egged on, not only by a thirst or an appetite or a craving for the old object of my addictions, but by others still caught in addiction whose moral responsibility has been reduced to zero. Today I will remember, avoid slippery places. This one sounds familiar to me. I feel like I read it already, but it was before I was keeping track of which ones I read. So you get to hear a second share on it, and I guarantee you it'll be different than the first. But I really love the honesty in this. Like, it's saying, don't expose yourself to something that is going to trip you up. Like, just be smart. You know, if you have trouble walking down the snacks and bakery aisle at the store, don't walk down the bakery aisle at the store. Don't go into the bar. Don't go to the racetrack. And I remember in the beginning, some things, like, they just are brought to work, or they're placed in front of you, or you're out with friends or something. And there is, I think, a large degree of white knuckling at the beginning when you don't have the muscle memory, the emotional maturity, the distance from your triggers. There is a good amount of white knuckling it that is just part of the initial growing pains, I do think. But like, don't add, we were talking about unnecessary pain just a few days ago. Don't add unnecessary pain by exposing yourself to more things than you need to be exposed to. And that's really helpful. It's just helpful. And they talk about, if we don't want to slip, we'll avoid slippery places. And even in the introduction of this podcast, my heart is for people who are slipping and sliding in the steps. They're slipping up in their abstinence and recovery. They can't keep moving forward through the steps because they keep losing their sobriety and abstinence, and they have to start back over again and again and again, because it was me. Because this was me so many times. And so it's not that I'm like, hey, yeah, me too. It's like, oh my gosh, I know the pain you're in. I can help you. Let me coach you. Let me encourage you. Let me tell you that you can find a way to keep going. You can get better. You can move forward. Just because you are someone who is slipping and sliding, it doesn't mean that that's your life sentence. It doesn't mean that that's where the story ends. It just means you have a more dynamic story. You have more chapters to your story, perhaps, or, there's more detours that you're taking that are prolonging that destination that you desire. But maybe at the end, it's going to be a really great story. I bet it will be. But you have to keep going. You have to keep reading to get to the end. Otherwise, you'll never know how it finishes. You'll never know that glorious ending. So we want to avoid slippery places. And you hear this phrase a lot of different ways. If you play with fire, you're going to get burned. If you walk close to the water, you're going to get wet. You become who your friends are. I remember resenting that a little bit in like high school and college and being like, well, just because they do stuff, it doesn't mean I'm going to do stuff. Like, quit being such a, spaz mom. And I can see how their influence rubbed off on me. 100%. I can see that maybe I wasn't as strong as I thought I was, or maybe it's just the human condition that we start to take on things that are around us, for better or for worse. So in a way, it's not to say, reject people who aren't what you want to be, but be mindful of who you're around and the effect they have on you. Because chances are you aren't even going to want to be around them if you don't like the effect. But you have to be sober enough to notice the effect that they're having on you. So I might just leave you with that for today. So reach out. Carry on. Keep going. With that, I pass. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you feel that mindset coaching could help you on your 12-step journey, please feel free to reach out and find me at catholicmindsetcoaching.com. This is not a replacement for 12-step work. This is something outside of the 12 steps. It is simply something that has a heart for the 12 steps and those who are in it. And so, welcome. If you are here, chances are you may also be a bit of a mess. And I hope that you can learn to find some gratitude in the blessings that have come from your messes.